Hey, it's Darren with the Queer Integrity Dispatch on Substack. And I was thinking about language and the freedom to express ourselves in the words we use, spoken, written, the way in which we articulate, put out into the world what we mean. I'm Canadian. I still adhere to the what I believe is still the Canadian spelling of words like color and honor that end O-U-R. The American spelling is just O-R. It drops the U. Often when I'm correcting things, I'm always making sure that Canadianism is still there. Perhaps it's a little bit of a point of pride. Maybe it's even a little bit of patriotism. I'm surprised by that. Or perhaps it's also that I do not want to default to the hegemonic status quo of the American way of doing everything its own way and assuming everyone else should follow in its footsteps. But what made me think about this is this aspect of accommodation and or compromise. So I read an article in CBC about how the Quebec government wants to ban gender inclusive writing in French language government documents. Okay, so let's start with the first part. They're not going to ban gender inclusive writing all over the place, just the documents that they're going to issue from the government. But it's a slippery slope because the next thing they can say is anything the courts do must not be written in gender inclusive language. Anything that the government funds, be it schools or universities, must follow suit. So this is how this particular government works. They're going to pick on the stupidest, smallest, most insignificant issue to distract from other more serious problems, which is the case with many governments around the world. But let's think about it for a moment. I started with this idea of I write color, C-O-L-O-U-R. I also respect another person's request for their pronoun use. If they prefer he, she, or they, I will do my best to remember. And if I make a mistake and I catch myself, or if I'm called out on the mistake, I will apologize and just go repeat what I said, but correctly. Just like I hate being called D. My name is Darren. It's not D. Whoever does that did not ask for my permission. If that makes me happy, if that makes me feel accepted, seen, or appreciated. I am not D, I'm Darren. I like the name. It's relatively unique. There ain't a lot of Darrens in the world. So I feel a little bit special. Whatever. People like to be called Bob when their name is Robert. I don't know why. It's a personal preference. But when the government starts forcing people and using the word ban, meaning if you're an employee in the government, and this is the interesting challenge in French because it is a gendered language, meaning the pronouns le and la indicate the masculine or the feminine. It's the same challenge in German. There are three genders: masculine, feminine, and neuter. And when I was doing my master's, I was actually studying feminist linguistics that was looking at ways in which the German language could be played with morphologically, meaning what ways could you take the written word and make a visual change in the written word that would indicate inclusivity for all genders. And then the question would be then, so that's written, we can see that. In what case, the simple example would be the plural of a word, the last vowel, the ending of the word would indicate that it was a plural collective. The last vowel would be capitalized. It looks really odd, and it was just an attempt to see, could this be possible? And in spoken, you would emphasize that last vowel. So you would change the emphasis on the word. So if it was teachers, and the plural for teachers, the general grammatical plural for teachers is Lehrer, which takes the masculine sort of ending. If you want to say a group of female women teachers only, it would be Lehrerinnen. So the feminist linguists said, let's take that I at the end, capitalize it, and instead of saying Lehrerinnen, we say Lehrerinnen. So it's the second last vowel in this case. And French would use these little dots in between at the end of the word to show the different endings to include both the masculine and the feminine for inclusion. Now, admittedly, that's difficult. It takes a little bit more time to do this kind of writing when you've always got to be adding in these things. However, it's 2025. We have AI all over the place. On my Mac, I have AI that's always popping up that asks me if I want to rewrite something in a particular way. I also use Quillbot instead of Grammarly because I prefer it to help improve my writing. It checks for grammar, it checks for spelling errors. Those features could be very easily developed to ask, would you like these nouns, these category nouns for people, like teachers, workers, bureaucrats, I don't know, to be made gender inclusive? And you could just hit a single key and that could all be done. But because it's out of the ordinary, because it's what people haven't seen regularly, it takes adjustment. It takes accommodation. So when you go to a restaurant, when you go to a hotel, you are being accommodated. In the first instance, you're being accommodated by the restaurant. May we show you to your table? Here is the menu. Today's specials are, and they accommodate you by telling you the specials because it's maybe not written down somewhere. They come back and accommodate you by taking your order. They accommodate you by bringing you your beverages and your meal. At a hotel, you are accommodated physically in a room with accommodation. They are putting you up for the night or however long you are staying. Now, in those instances, you are paying someone else to accommodate you. And if you really like the restaurant and you really like the hotel, you might give them a good review, or you'll recommend it to friends, or you'll come back. Because you appreciate the service, you appreciate the accommodation, you appreciate being allowed to be yourself and have the freedom to enjoy yourself in those spaces. In the space of how we think about who we are and how we identify, we would like to be seen and recognized for how we internally see ourselves in the environment of our internal mind, of how we identify, how we show up in the world. And I'm here to say it's not fucking difficult to accommodate someone with a small word like they. It is not difficult to have to take a little bit of extra time in a government document that recognizes everyone when taxpayers are already paying a lot of money to the government to do work that, in the grand scheme of things, maybe it takes an individual worker in the government who is finalizing a document that's probably been dictated and created by several ministers of, the parliament, the legislature. Maybe it takes them an extra half an hour in a week to just rework the category nouns that indicate a person and indicate gender inclusivity. The people that are saying no to this at the highest level of government, in the Quebec government, are only doing this for the reason of distraction. Do I have proof of this? No. But what other reason would there be for this with a government that's already trying to set up so many restrictions on all kinds of ways in which people seek to freely be who they are and express themselves, whether that be through religious symbol presentation, only if you're an Arab, because if you're a Catholic in Quebec, well, then of course, you can wear a cross, and you're not going to be told to take that off if you work at a public institution. But I'm getting off track. Accommodation in leadership. It is not about telling someone what to do. I've written about this in a previous article, and I just want to read this to wrap up. Leadership is about the values you embody, how you lead yourself, and the heartfelt mission you are pursuing to make a difference. Now, there's an aspect of compassion. There's an aspect of humility. There's an aspect of flexibility and seeing other people for who they are. If you care about how people freely express themselves, then you will find ways to accommodate their need and their desire to be who they are. One of the greatest forms of leadership you can embody. Imagine you make someone feel seen, heard, respected, dignified. It's a small ask, and it's just one example. This dictate from the government in Quebec to try and ban, not to make it optional, not to say we're not going to pursue this as a policy, meaning some documents, if written by someone who is more comfortable writing in gender inclusive language, will be allowed to publish those things. No, they are banning it. And when you ban accommodation, people push back because they see you don't care. Real human-hearted leadership cares. And especially as a queer leader, in some ways we care, I don't want to say more than others, but we care very deeply along with other people who are regularly marginalized or prejudiced against, because we are forced through exclusion, through lack of accommodation, to look inward and find our own strength, self-awareness, self-acceptance, and build up our own self-esteem to say we deserve dignity just like everyone else. So some food for thought. Where are you not being accommodating as a leader? And how is that affecting the people who look up to you and hope to follow your lead and your guidance and be inspired by your wisdom?